Charlotte, Rock Hill, Gastonia, surrounding areas. Welcome back to the latest installment of Under Construction. You got two guys sitting at the bar. Maybe not literally, but figuratively. You got myself, the angry black fan, Jamal Darby, along with Mr. Kaza Sose. Mr. Sose, what's going on today, brother?
Man, it's just another Sunday in Pantherland.
Another Sunday in Pantherland. I think Joey Sly's missed field goal is kind of a symbol of how the Panthers season is going to go.
Yeah, we talked about on the show last week last season. We started 4-2. We were like, man, maybe this team ain't so bad, and then we just drove off the cliff. And we said, well, that might happen this season, but it feels different, and it still does feel different. I think the Panthers we're gonna lose. We're about to lose a lot of games, but I think the difference is that last season we would have got blown out by the Saints. There's no way we would have lost by just 3 points to the Saints. And whereas, this week the Panthers had a lot of chances to win the game. That was a game that they could have won. I'm not gonna say they should have won it, but that's a very winnable game. So, surprisingly against the Saints.
So let's get into the statistics, man. Teddy Bridgewater, 23 for 28, 254 yards, 9.1 average, 2 touchdowns, a passer rating of 128.3. But you know what the most important stat is that I looked at, Mr. Kaza?
1 sack for 8 yards?
1 sack for 8 yards. And what a time to take the sack, man. Like, out of all the times to take a sack, we take a sack on a critical third down while we were driving down the field. Mike Davis, I don't know if I can fault the guy for trying to keep Davenport out the backfield. I don't know why he was put in that position in the first place. Let's start there, Kaza. What do you think about that play in particular?
I'm going to put this loss squarely on the coaching staff. They got out-coached.
I agree.
I saw way too many. We talk about this every week. 3 guys rushing the passer, 8 in coverage. Every week we talk about it.
It's the same thing.
Comes out of it. Alvin Kamara got a key third down in the third quarter when the Panthers only rushed 3, and he comes out of the backfield. He's in a wide open zone, one-on-one coverage with, I think it might have been Eli Apple. I'm not sure, but whatever the case, he ends up scampering 15 yards for a third down. So that was just one of the many things that I said we didn't manage the timeouts properly. That's something rookie mistake by Matt Rule, if you want to call it that. But at the end of the game, we were down to 1 timeout. It's a moot point. At that point. And
let me cut you off real quick. And one of those lost timeouts was on a really bad challenge. Anybody with 2 eyes could see Kamara got that first down, man.
I understand that was close, and I felt like maybe he didn't get it, but as we all know, there has to be evidence to overturn, and there was no way the league was.
There was no way to overturn that, right?
Yeah, New York was not going to overturn that call on the field. If the refs had called it short, maybe. But yeah, I just felt like the Panther staff just got out. I mean, Sean Payton, he's he's going to be considered one of the greatest NFL coaches ever, despite only winning 1 Super Bowl. But he's going to be, thought of as one of the greatest coaches ever. And I think it was just too much for Matt Rule and his staff today. By the way, Terry Thomas, I love this Purple Rain shirt too. My good friend Thomas Luria sent it to me because he was thinking about me. So it was just purple pain today, though. Man, also, one last thing. I felt like on the play Bridgewater got sacked on, you got to know the heat's coming.
Right.
There's got to be a hot read. There has to be something. There was nowhere for Teddy to go with the ball, honestly, and the heat got there so fast. You have to expect that in that situation, that down and distance, that's going to happen. Every NFL team is going to blitz in that situation, except the Carolina Panthers. Go figure. We would have dropped 8 in coverage.
We would have dropped 9 in coverage. Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
But that's just another thing. I felt like the coach staff wasn't prepared. Like, hey, all right, guys, the heat's coming because the Saints know they get a sack, the game's over. They knock us out of field goal range, and that's exactly what happened.
So, I'm glad you're mentioning this, man, because I want to segue into what I want to talk about first, man. There was one stat that I have not really mentioned yet, and that's Drew Brees. 29 for 36, 287, took 1 sack, has a passer rating of 118.4. Kaza, we don't have a counter on this show per se. We don't keep track of how many times we say something, but how many times do you think that I have said on this show, I am sick and tired of the Panthers bending and not breaking defense? But today, there was a lot of bending, and it sure was a lot of breaking today, and mainly a lot of breaking tackles from the Saints skill players today. Look, man, let me preface my next statement by saying this. We knew coming into the season we were a very young, inexperienced defense. We knew that coming into the season. But there are just some things, man. Like, I'm obviously not a coach. I'm not close to these players. I know this. But there are just some things that I deem that are still unacceptable, man. You got the Saints on the 3rd and 14, and you're missing tackles because you're shoulder tackling. Trey Boston, who was supposed to know this stuff, who is a veteran on this defense, who was supposed to be the leader, had another really bad day and contributed a lot to these bad plays, man. It's one thing when the young guys are doing it, but when your main guy and supposedly leader is doing it, then that's another thing, man. And it's unacceptable, man. You share the same thoughts, or
no? There was a lack of execution on the defense today, particularly when it comes to tackling. And I understand, like I said, young defense. We are the youngest defense in the NFL. So there's going to be some growing pains. But part of the coaching staff's job is you got a game plan for what you got. If you know that your guys aren't good at tackling in space, which we know this by now, and certainly the coaching staff would have known this long before we defended it, then you make your scheme account for that. And I feel like the Panthers have not done that.
And it's to your point, man. It's interesting that our DBs are backing up 8 to 10 yards off a receiver, giving them what? Space.
Which I understand, man. Okay, sometimes you feel like, okay, if a DB doesn't have the quickness or agility to keep up with a receiver, and the Saints have very fast receivers, then you want to give them the cushion. The problem is that Drew Brees and Sean Payton are going to take whatever
you give them,
and they're going to keep taking it. The thing with bend don't break against the Saints is it never works because you'll just be bent like this the whole game.
It hasn't worked for like 5 or 6 straight seasons, man.
Exactly. It's not going to work. If you give the receivers a 4-yard cushion, the Saints are going to take that every time. And if you look at the Saints today, they didn't really have a whole lot of big passing plays.
Right.
I mean, the Panthers had the biggest passing play of the game.
Right.
It was typical death by 1,000 paper cuts with the Saints. Screen passes, little dump offs. Alvin Kamara just had a field day. One of our fans in the comments just said a healthy McCaffrey would have won this game for us. Maybe. I think our running game would have been much better. We didn't see a whole lot of Mike Davis today. It's almost like the Saints said, okay, we're going to show you that.
Let's take him away.
Yeah, he's not elite, and we'll take our chances with Teddy Bridgewater. And it worked. It almost worked in our favor, but into that, I really can't say anything bad this week about Curtis Samuel or DJ Moore.
Yeah, great, no doubt.
Those guys, especially Curtis Samuel. I thought the offense actually played pretty well, especially once they got fired up, but the defense just has a lot to learn.
I got to give a shout out to Greg Little, man, because Greg Little has definitely taken his lumps during this season. But when Russell Okung went down and Greg Little entered the game, man, I mean, he came off the bench, cold, not taking any snaps, man. But if you look at how he contained the left side of the line, man, I got to give him props for that, man.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
The O-line did great today. I feel like the offense as a whole, except for the running game, did pretty well.
But back to this defense, man. I promise we'll try not to be too long-winded about this, but man, it's so frustrating. I can't imagine what would have happened, or how different the outcome, or how much worse the outcome would have been if they would have had Michael Thomas playing today. There were some guys I've never heard of. And listen, Drew Brees, I said last week, he may not be what he's been in the past, but he is still Drew Brees. He is still a very cerebral quarterback. And he continues to make no-name guys, so to speak. He continues to earn them money. And he did that today. Do you think it would have been worse if Michael Thomas is out there today?
Maybe. I mean, Drew Brees, I feel like, and I hate to say this because I despise the Saints, but he's the best passer of the football, I think, in NFL history. When you talk about throwing a football and putting it on the numbers, now he doesn't have a real prolific deep game. That's probably the only flaw in Drew Brees. He doesn't have like a cannon arm.
Right.
But when it comes to making guys, he puts the ball exactly where it needs to be. Some of the catches these guys I never heard of they're able to make because the ball was exactly where it needed to be. The catch their tight end made to score their first touchdown of the game.
Jared Cook, yeah.
Yeah, perfectly thrown ball, and it was a tough catch for Jared Cook to make because he had our DB draped all over him, but the ball was exactly where
which Boston should have been called for pass interference, but he face guarded Cook the whole time and still got burnt. But yeah,
a testament to to how good Drew Brees is. So I'm not sure if Michael Thomas, if it would have been like that much worse. I think we might have seen more targets to him rather than them leaning heavily on Alvin Kamara during the game, like they did.
So I'm pretty sure you're expecting this question and expect me to bring this up, man. But the New Orleans Saints, man, they were 12 for 14 on third down conversions, man. There is no way any NFL team is going to win a game if you're giving up third downs like that, man.
You see my face. When they did that, I wasn't keeping track of the stats. There was one of the Facebook sports groups made a poll. What was the likelihood that we would see the Saints punter in the second half? And we didn't, by the way.
And we didn't.
Yeah, he didn't come out at all. To me, though, that's coaching. Because third down is really where the chess match is. Because depending on the down or the distance and the situation, it comes down to who's going to pick the best play.
Right.
And clearly, we picked the
wrong plays
every time. Now I understand that there were some times where we might have missed a tackle, and you're going to get that. But 12 times, I refuse to believe that the Panthers missed 12 tackles or in the wrong position 12 times. A lot of that was just we picked the wrong play. The Saints picked the right play, and that's just, I mean, you can't do that, not against the New Orleans Saints.
For a lot of those downs, man, I was, at home begging Snow to bring a blitz up the middle because Drew Brees, in my opinion, man, was way too comfortable, especially in that first half. He started the game, correct me if I'm wrong, something like 8 for 8, 9 for 9, something like that. Way too comfortable. And the one time we did, Alvin Kamara, the last guy on the field that should be ignored, is basically ignored, and you throw a screen pass to him, and then they convert on the 3rd and 13, man. So it's just like, to your point, man, it's just like the guessing game that you play on these third downs. We lost them 12 out of 14 times, man. And I don't have an answer to that. I have to give Sean Payton and Drew Brees credit, man. They're offensive gurus. I hate saying that because I hate the Saints. But at the same time, we have got to be better, man. Besides Brian Burns, is there a concern on this defensive line? Because I felt like we didn't get a lot of pressure outside of Brian Burns today.
We talked about this in the previous weeks as well, and they posted a stat during the game how the Panthers, through the first 4 games of the season, were almost like dead last in pressures. and through the last few weeks, they were 4th in pressures. So there's clearly some improvement there, but we cannot reliably pressure the quarter, or rather get enough pressure on the quarterback to matter. I mean, I understand it's Drew Brees. It's hard to get pressure on Drew Brees. That's Saints' offensive line. Drew Brees he's gonna make the correct decision 90% of the time. He's gonna get the ball out before you even get to him 90% of the time. It would be nice though to have somebody on the other side, or that someone that could push the middle. Derek Brown's a rookie, and I think he's playing well, but with K'Wan Short gone now.
And look, and not to mention, Derek Brown had a hell of a matchup against Andres Pete. Let's be clear about that, man. So I mean, you don't expect to get the best of him every week, man.
I feel like that teams can just match up one-on-one with our guys, and if you've got a guy that can keep up with Brian Burns' speed, I love Brian Burns. I'm a fan of his, and I see the improvement. But the thing is if you can neutralize his speed, then you've taken him out of the game.
Right.
And, he made a huge play for us today. He's made big plays every week. But besides him, if I'm an offensive coordinator, the Panthers D-line is not a concern to me at all.
Right. All right, man, we've talked about the defense a lot, man. I want to shift the conversation a little bit to the offense. Like I said, man, Teddy Bridgewater had a really good game, man. I thought he took advantage of what's really a poor secondary by the Saints, man. I don't want to act like I'm taking away credit from Teddy Bridgewater, but we have to be fair as well. The Saints secondary is not good, and I think he did what he's supposed to do. But I have a stat I want to throw out at you, man, and I don't know if there's really you can kind of attempt to explain what may have happened today, man. Mike Davis, 7 carries, 12 yards, a long run of 7 yards. What do you think happened there today?
I'm more concerned with the 7 carries than the 12 yards. The Panthers total had only 14 rushing attempts against 28 pass attempts. And I get that we were kind of playing behind for a lot of the game. But clearly, to put that into perspective, the Saints had 29 rushing attempts on 37 passing attempts.
Right.
So we were losing.
Now, I was going to say, man, I didn't mean to cut you off, man, but that's the thing, because they dominated time of possession. I mean, look at how many more total plays they had compared to us, man. And their drives all game, you said this before, man, they were methodical drives down the field. They didn't hit a lot of big plays today. You know what I mean? It was just methodical 75-yard plays all game, man. But back to us in the running game, man. What were you saying?
I'm not sure if the Panthers were ever in a position to where we could run a lot. Also, I really think that Teddy wanted to make a statement against his former team. So they're going to come out throwing the ball, and especially considering Bridgewater didn't have a great game last week. I think they felt like, okay, we're going to come out, we're going to establish this is our game plan. We're going to pass against the Saints. And it almost worked, but just wasn't quite. You got to keep the Saints off the field. And
absolutely.
You're not really doing that. Even if you're scoring, you're just giving the Saints the ball right back. You got to win that time possession battle against New Orleans.
Do you think the Saints made an adjustment in that fourth quarter, because it felt like they were not keying in on the run so much, and they kind of backed off of that a little bit? Do you kind of feel the same way?
Yeah, no, absolutely, I agree. I felt like they knew that Teddy had a rhythm. The Panthers playing from behind, even though we were only down 4 points. They knew that, okay, the Panthers were probably going to commit to the pass some. And that's what Sean Payton and his guys do. They are a good – the Saints are good because they have a great coaching staff, honestly. And I think they just proved that more today. Our coaching staff wasn't quite up to the challenge. I don't think Matt Rule and his guys – first of all, I actually feel like Joe Brady called a pretty good game despite us not running the ball well. And we had a lot of big plays. That that touchdown pass to DJ Moore was absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
Even though it was busted coverage by the Saints, but that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to take advantage of broken coverage and score touchdowns.
Well, I have to give Teddy Bridgewater credit for that one, man, because the commentator kind of made mention of this too. I think the reason why that coverage was so busted is because Teddy Bridgewater kind of looked off one of the Saints secondary, and that kind of allowed DJ Moore to be so wide open. So I got to give him credit, man. Speaking of DJ Moore, 4 catches, 93 yards, 2 touchdowns a day. And, you know, I've mentioned this in previous shows, man. I personally, and it's just may be a thing with me. I kind of personally noticed that DJ Moore was kind of slumping. And when I say slumping, I mean kind of like the body language just kind of wasn't there for me. Today, I kind of feel like he had a pep in his step today. Yeah. And I don't know if that's just a Jamal thing or is this something anybody else notices, but I just kind of felt like, you know, the Panthers ran a play where they run a sweep and he actually gets a touchdown off the jet sweep, man. So it looks like it felt like he was more involved today and he had a little more oomph today. Do you kind of feel the same way, or am I tripping?
No. I think also as the weeks go on and the chemistry of the team gels, especially that wide receiver core, a friend of ours, mutual friend of ours, texted me during the game and talked about essentially hey, y'all still not sold on Bridgewater. And I won't get into the details of that conversation, but during that conversation, I said, well,
I'm sure if it's who I think it is, I'm pretty sure that conversation was slanted, but go ahead.
So I said that I felt like Teddy this year has a much better wide receiver core than our previous quarterback ever had.
Right.
And I think those guys are finally starting to gel. I think Robbie Anderson, Curtis Samuel had a great game today. That third down stat was absolutely mind-blowing. And I just think that, the team chemistry is starting to improve. And I think that makes a pretty big difference. Plus, Teddy is very generous to his wideouts, unlike Cam, who really was a tight end guy. Cam was going to go to whoever was open and reliable, and that happened to be Greg Olsen and Christian McCaffrey. So whereas Teddy throws his wideouts. So I think we definitely saw a little bit more from DJ Moore today. I was glad. I even thought, I was like, "Ooh, we don't have to talk shit about those guys on the show today. We can."
Right.
Good thing about DJ and Curtis this week.
One thing that kind of concerns me, with the Saints. I looked at some of these statistics and I look at these guys: Marquez Callaway, Traquan Smith, Deontay Harris.
Who?
Right. That's my point. Marquez Callaway, 8 catches, 75 yards. Traquan Smith, 4 catches, 54 yards. Deontay Harris, 4 catches, 46 yards. To be fair, Rasul Douglas is out today. We have some injuries in the secondary. Justin Burris is out. So we lean heavily on Troy Pride, who was the second corner today. God, I forget his name in the slot. Corn Elder was dependent on a lot today. I know this is a no excuse league. I'm trying my best to try to reason here. Did we miss those guys today? Being that guys like Marquez Callaway and Traquan Smith had pretty decent days against us today. Did that matter today?
I don't think so. This is the Saints. I thought about this. I was just thinking about this during the course of the game about, the Panthers literally have been the most inconsistent team from season to season since their inception. And no one seems to know why. There's no rhyme or reason. I think one of the reasons why is the Panthers never have a whole lot of depth from season to season. We're always top heavy on talent when we're good, but that next man up, it never applies to the Panthers. It just never does. Whereas the Saints, they're good because they got guys who can just come in and fit into the system and perform well. Same with the New England Patriots. They have a system and they say, okay, we want guys that are going to fit into our system. I can slot a guy in and it might not be, the exact same level of performance, but it's going to be just enough so we can execute our game plan and play our style of play. And I think that's what we saw today from the Saints.
I want to answer Ken Duncombe's, and I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, my man, but he is asking, where are our linebackers at? I'll say this. Shaq Thompson had 13 total tackles today.
13 tackles today.
7 solo tackles today. Look, we don't say much about Shaq Thompson on the show. He's done his thing. However, here's something I noticed. Darius Taylor is getting more and more defensive snaps every week, and we're starting to see less and less of Tahir Whitehead. This is probably a layup question, Kaiser, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Should we just go ahead and start Darius Taylor, man?
No coincidences in the NFL. We've been talking about Whitehead every week. There's just the coaching staff, if we see it, we know the coaching staff sees it. And if there's one, there's actually a lot of positives I can say about Matt Rule and his staff, but I think they do learn from week to week. They are really taking this first season in the NFL as a learning experience, even though I know like Joe Brady has some NFL experience, but particularly Matt Rule. And I think they look at the tape and they look at the stats and they say, this guy, he's not cutting it. Linebacker is our weak spot. And performance-wise, I feel like, okay, Shaq Thompson, he did a good job this week. He actually played fairly well last week. But the impact's not there.
Right.
I feel like your linebacker position should be more of an impact position than a statistical position. You need guys that are
to make plays.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have not seen that from anyone except Jeremy Chin, who's a safety. So
who's a safety?
Right.
Yeah, right.
So and even he was second in the team in tackles today. I feel like the Saints actually kind of game planned him out of and that's a testament to how well he's playing.
Yeah, no doubt.
You really hear his name called a lot today, but that's what you want. You want a linebacker whose name you're going to hear. I mean, I hate to bring up Luke Kuechly because he's a future Hall of Famer, but every play, Luke Kuechly on the tackle. Oh, look at Luke Kuechly run all the way across the side. Look at it. And I'm not saying Shaq Thompson or those guys have to be Luke Kuechly or even Thomas Davis, but I'd like to hear your name.
Yeah. No, but like you said, man, I mean, there's the statistical impact, but then there's the playmaking impact, and guys like the Luke Kuechlys and the Thomas Davises, we've been spoiled for almost a decade with those guys making plays, and we're not getting that a lot. And like you said, man, I mean, when you got teams game planning kind of against your best defensive player, arguably, we can argue about that later. Other guys got to step up and do it, man. Like right now, Brian Burns is like, I won't say right now, this particular game, Brian Burns was the only guy to really make impact plays today. Mm-hmm. And you need more out of your defense, man. And especially when you're giving up 12 for 14 on third down.
I'd really like to see the Panthers look heavily at the linebacker position in the draft. I know the draft is a long ways off and a lot can happen before then, but the Panthers, if there's one thing, a lot of people say, well, the Panthers have never had an identity. I disagree with that. Our identity has always been good defense, run the ball well. But I feel like, and Chris Rogers is about to make my point, we've always had solid linebackers, always, from the first game in the league. If you look at the list of linebackers that have played for the Carolina Panthers, it's a pretty good list with some Hall of Famers on there.
Absolutely.
We've got nobody right now that you can say, man, that guy could be a Hall of Famer or All-Pro even. And I hate to say that because I kind of thought Shaq Thompson might be that guy, but as a linebacker in the league, you got to make the impact plays.
All right, so we're gonna move on to next week, man. We have our I guess I can say this again. We have the rival Atlanta Falcons coming to town Thursday, man. Give me your predictions, man. What do you think, man? Do we pull this one off? What you got, Kaza?
I think we finally get our first blowout of the season. And
that's a bold statement, man.
And I know Falcons fans are going to come at my throat for this, but you have to beat the Falcons. they're in complete disarray. They have no GM. They're on an interim head coach. They just blew another lead today to the Detroit Lions. If you are an Atlanta Falcon player, you are playing for really more for your personal pride and individual accolades at this point. You cannot lose. If you're the Panthers, you cannot lose to a team like that. If you're the Jets, yeah, sure, whatever. But the Panthers are trying to rebuild a new culture here. You got a divisional rival that's dead in the water. You got to win that game.
You got to win the game.
And you can't just win it. You have to make a statement for that in that kind of game. I feel like Matt Rule's going to have his guys ready to play. We might have Christian McCaffrey back. You got to stomp on Atlanta's neck. Anything less, to me, is inconsequential. It would be pointless. If you go and you beat the Falcons by 1 point, to me that's worse, because then you're like, the Falcons, they don't even have a coach. You can only beat them by 1 point. You got to go in there. And so my prediction, I think the Panthers win 30-7.
All right, man. I'm not as confident as you are. I'm going to reluctantly pick the Panthers to win, and I'd say it's going to be another high-scoring affair. I'd say we win 30-28. One major concern of mine is that man is back for Atlanta, and our secondary, who struggled mightily against guys I've never heard of before, has to deal with Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley next week. Now, who's to say that we don't make adjustments next week? You say that we don't have an identity, but it seems like our identity against pass happy teams are bending and not breaking.
Yeah.
I don't see why we change anything next week, which I think we should, but we probably won't. But that's why I reluctantly picked them, because I reluctantly picked them for the same reasons that you are saying we got to beat them. That team is in disarray. They're playing with the interim coach. They're 1-6. Those veteran guys, they pretty much know the season is over. The
locker room is lost.
I agree with that. So unless the Falcons come in here and show an ounce of pride next week, man, I'll still pick us to win. But I'm just a little slightly less confident than you.
I feel like the Panthers are the better team, regardless. We might not have. I would even say across the board, we might have better offensive talent outside of Matt Ryan and Julio Jones. So, the Panthers should win that game. They're going to be favored slightly. We should win that game. I think a loss is a huge step back for the Panthers.
I agree.
If you lose to the Falcons next week on Thursday night football, so this is national TV. Everyone's going to see this. This is a good chance for Matt Rule to make his stamp on the NFL. On a nationally televised game. You got to treat this like it's a playoff game, even if it's not. You have to treat it that way, because if you do, then the results are going to be very, very favorable.
All right, real quick, man. Offensive MVP for today. Who you got?
Curtis Samuel. I know DJ Moore was you could say Teddy Bridgewater or DJ Moore, but Samuel made some key third downs. He had a rushing touchdown. He's being used all over the place, kind of like as a McCaffrey light. This was a big game for him, I think.
All right, I'm going to go with the obvious choice, because I'm starting to be tagged as a Teddy Bridgewater hater. So just to prove that I'm not, I'm going to give him offensive MVP today. I will say this, man. As far as his game manager tag that he's kind of been, he's been tagged. I can't say I saw that today, man. He even threw deep balls today. So
yeah,
the whole game manager thing puts egg on our faces today, man.
Does. Except I'll say this, though. The reason game managers are players who they won't lose the game for you, but they won't win it. And Teddy Bridgewater did not win this game for us. He played well, but when it came down to it in crunch time, we're playing for a field goal.
Yeah, right.
And right. That's the difference. Now, the thing is we said this before on the show. Teddy Bridgewater might just be a stopgap QB. He's a quality NFL starter, but I really think the Panthers have gone all in on Teddy Bridgewater. And
you believe so?
I don't think you offer a guy, $20 million a year for 3 years with the idea that you'll just dump him off on the next best thing. I think Joe Brady likes Teddy Bridgewater. I think Matt Rule likes Teddy Bridgewater. And I think the idea is to build a strong defense, which you give Teddy Bridgewater like the defense that Cam had, back in 2013 or 2016.
Along with these same weapons Teddy Bridgewater has now.
Yeah, with the better wide receiver core and
right.
McCaffrey, I think that, Teddy Bridgewater would be your guy in that case. I don't think you got anything to worry about. But now as the team stands, if you have to count on Teddy Bridgewater to match with Drew Brees, which statistically he did, but where it counted on the scoreboard, he did not.
Right.
Drew Brees is throwing touchdowns while we're throwing screen passes.
Right.
So there's your difference there.
Real quick before I go to defensive MVP, I want to talk to Ken's point real quick, man. This is something else I've said on the previous show, man. Screen passes work when you have the right personnel to execute them. And I've always said that, and listen, I don't want to be overly critical of the offensive line because I really feel like they've overachieved this year, but we're not quite there to have this screen game cracking like we really wanted to. Mm-hmm. Even if Chris McCaffrey comes back, man, and you even saw examples today. It works when you have Alvin Kamara and a stout offensive line. It doesn't quite work with our offensive line and Curtis Samuel or whoever, man. So, Ken, I just wanted to talk to your point real quick, man.
Yeah, screen passes are almost like play actions. They work because you catch the defense off guard. And
right.
To catch the defense off guard, you have to set them up first. We don't have any way to set up screen passes.
Right.
If we just throw screen passes out there because we want to be like the Saints, it's not going to work. And I agree that I think that's a part of our game that it has to develop. We just can't be like, all right, guys, we're going to throw a screen pass. I got one for you.
Before you ask, we got. I just want to ask you defensive MVP real quick. Brian, yeah, same here. I'll give a quick reason, and that I'm sure you'll agree with. The only guy to make impact plays on defense today, so that's our defensive MVP. What was your question?
So somebody on one of the Facebook Carolina sports groups said essentially something that I think we're all thinking. They said they thought the Panthers were going to win, and then they would essentially be the Hornets. Too good to be
to totally tank, right?
And then, but not good enough to make the playoffs, and it with a high draft pick. Now, I have a thought about that, but I want to hear what you think about that. That'll be a good segue into the NBA.
I'm glad you asked that question, man. Well, there's obviously a different dynamic with the lottery system versus how the NFL draft works. Let's state the obvious first. If the Panthers tread somewhere in the middle, I mean, is it really that consequential? Because it's not. Who's to say that a guy that will really help your franchise is not available at the 15th pick or the 18th pick or wherever? You know what I mean? With football, because of there being so many positions, man, we've seen impact players be drafted in the late first round. We've seen impact players be drafted in the fourth round of the NFL draft.
The number 9 pick.
Right. Greg Hardy, for all of his craziness aside, he's the fourth round draft pick. DJ Moore was drafted at like 22 or something like that, man. So in both scenarios, in both the Hornet scenario and the Panther scenario, I think it's overstated about draft position, man. With both teams, with both organizations, you got to just draft the right guy at whatever position you're at and don't worry about that so much.
Right.
Now, for the Panthers, it's a little more, what's the word I'm looking for, man? It's a little more critical from a fan perspective because we let go of one of our fan favorites. A lot of us, including me, thought that if you just retool around Cam Newton, if you just kind of, you don't have to, you didn't necessarily have to tear it all down, so to speak, to get better. We could have went that direction. We chose not to. So, fans like me are like, all right, we're here now, so you got to actually execute whatever you were planning on doing. And it's kind of the same exact thing with the Hornets. Kemba Walker and the Hornets agree that they both should separate from each other. I think it's going to work out in the long run for both organizations, Panthers and Hornets aside. So,
nope, I agree with every point you just made. The NFL system and the NBA system are really two different. In fact, I think that in the NFL, you should always be playing to win games. It is much better to go 7-9 and have a number 9 or number 10 pick, I think, than it is to go 3-13 and have one of the top few picks. Because in the NFL, really, I would hate to draft in the top 3, mainly because if you're drafting a high, you probably need a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen so many high draft pick QB busts in the NFL.
Absolutely.
Such a crapshoot. Unless the guy coming out is a guy like Trevor Lawrence, you really kind of have to draft him. But he might end up being terrible.
And real quick, man, to that point, man, how many NFL teams in particular have we seen draft in the top 3, 5, whatever, and they reach to get that quarterback?
Oh, yeah.
When that quarterback is not even the best talent available.
Look at Cleveland. How many top 3 picks have the Browns had in the last few seasons in which they've drafted top quarterbacks coming out of college and they hadn't pan out?
Right.
Baker Mayfield might pan out, but he's not what we all thought he was going to be coming out of college. So I think if you're an NFL team who is 7-9, 8-8, maybe even 6-10, that means that might not necessarily mean you're a bad team. If the Panthers go 6-10 this season, I think that's a win. I
agree.
Like if the Bucks went 6-10, well, that didn't work out.
Yeah, right.
So those are two different situations. So it's hard for me to say, well, yeah, the Panthers are going to be like the Hornets. So,
speaking of the Hornets and the NBA and the drafting, NBA, the powers that be have stated that they are aiming to have a 72-game season starting on December 22nd, if I'm not mistaken. I think if they can pull this off, man, that is a major win, because people who actually like basketball and don't wait until watch basketball to the playoffs, this is something that is so needed, man. I would love to see the NBA start on December 22nd. Now, this does mean, that they have to kind of rush free agency a bit because of the timing between the NBA draft and the start of the season. So with that being said, is this possible for them to pull it off?
Yes, I think they will. Let me re-ask that question. Is it logistically possible for the NBA to pull this off? I mean, I think they can. The NBA, the bubble was, for the most part, it was a success. It was, compared to what we're seeing like in the NFL now, where it seems like every other player has COVID, and it's kind of messing things. It's
messing up the flow.
No, it is. Take a guy like Cam Newton, who was playing lights out, gets COVID-19, misses 2 weeks of practice, comes back, loses, and now the media is like, well, we're not sold on Cam Newton. Well, the dude just had the damn plague. We saw players this week miss practices because the bubble in the NBA, in which no player tested positive in the bubble, worked. So I think the NFL or the NBA feels confident they can make this work. My only thing is that apparently they will be cutting out All-Star Weekend in order to accommodate the 72-game schedule. And part of that is because of the Olympics next year. They want to, they don't want players to be too tired to participate in the Olympics. And to that I say, in my opinion, as a sports fan, I would rather see the NBA All-Star Weekend rather than see NBA players compete in Olympics and basketball. Given the choice, and I know a lot of people disagree with me, but the NBA All-Star Weekend is a tradition that goes all the way back to before the merger. Actually, it was the ABA that started that, and the NBA after the merger kind of took on that tradition. I don't want to see.
I'm going to throw you a curveball, and I acknowledge that this might be a crazy question a little bit. Do you feel like the NBA may have been aiming to play the Olympics because of the social climate in America, so to speak? Could you see that as a possibility?
Oh yeah. So the NBA, we've said this on this show. The NBA may appear to be the most progressive of all the major professional sports leagues. That doesn't mean they're any less political. The NBA is all about politics. We've seen what happened with the situation with China. Any opportunity the NBA has to raise its international profile, they are not going to miss. The Olympics are very important to the NBA. Essentially, you get a chance to take your best players and showcase them against the world's best players, and we're probably going to win, and you're going to rake up all this international money, and the only sacrifice is 10 games out of the regular season and an all-star break. I don't like that compromise. I want to see the three-point contest. I want to see the slam dunk contest. I want to see the all-star game. I know a lot of people have been down on the all-star game, but we had an exciting all-star game in 2020. We had an exciting rising stars challenge that the Charlotte Hornets came and
took over.
Hell, I haven't. So I don't want to see that go away just so I can watch LeBron and his friends, beat Australia by 42 points. I don't want to see it. That's my only caveat about this thing. If they can find a way to keep the All-Star weekend, but I get it. They don't want the players. They have the players' health to consider. Now, Vince said Olympics better than All-Star weekend.
Now let me tackle this real quick. The Olympics as a whole, yes. Olympic basketball, I'm kind of leaning toward the entertainment value of All-Star Weekend being a little more than Olympic basketball. And I know, the world is catching up to us as far as like Olympic competition. The games are a little tighter, but at the same time, it's predictable. We know who's going to win the gold medal. It's going.
Anybody cares about Olympic basketball is when the United States are bad.
Right.
And the thing is, the United States, we have skipped international play before.
Hey, I want to get on Vince real quick. Let me get on Vince real quick. Vince, you're my boy. How you not gonna be on the show, but you giving us trouble in the chat room, man? Come on, because I really want you to explain to me what do you mean by the All-Star Weekend is too friendly for you?
I agree with him on that point, but last season I think did away with that. The changing the format of the All-Star game made it really competitive, especially in the fourth quarter. It was one of the better All-Star games that we saw because, especially in today's NBA, where analytically you should either lay the ball up or shoot a three-pointer, or dunk it or shoot a three-pointer. So that's the All-Star game was essentially that. It was a bunch of alley-oops and a bunch of threes, and it kind of made it kind of boring, because no one's playing defense anyway. But that changed a little last season, and it's just that for me, Olympic basketball is. I'll tell your mom happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Miss Dunlap. Sorry about that.
So I feel like, I understand what the NBA is trying to do, especially with a truncated offseason, although there was a huge break between the end of the regular season and the bubble. So I understand what the NBA is trying to do. They're trying to balance everything out for players' health. I think they can pull it off. I just don't like to see the All-Star Weekend go away.
I think I'm with you. I look when the All-Star game was here in Charlotte, man, that was like the best thing almost the best thing that ever happened to this city, man. I mean, I not only do I like the game itself, I actually enjoy all the hype around it. I really do. I like the performances. I like Shaq and Charles and Kevin Hart joking with each other. Like I love all the fanfare around All-Star Weekend, and that is going to be missed, man. So I'm with you on that. So with that being said, we better win the gold medal this year if that's the case.
You
better win this year.
I'll say this: I think the roster should be more star-studded than it normally is. The way they've done the Olympic rosters over the past 2 decades has essentially been top-heavy and then role players on the bench, because they feel like international basketball has gotten so competitive. They've essentially almost caught up to the NBA. That okay, now you need a better team structure than just having a bunch of good players. But I feel like if you're going to skip the All-Star game this year, you better have LeBron and AD and Kyrie and Kevin Durant and Steph Curry. You need to have everybody playing in the Olympics.
Yeah, I don't want to see Kentavious Caldwell Pope and Danny Green on the bench, man. Like I want the stars of stars. You know what I mean?
I want the Dream Team Part 4, whatever we name it this year. I want Steph Curry need a gold medal too, right? He don't have
Yeah. Look, Steph. Never mind. I ain't gonna say.
Steph ain't watching. Go get your gold medal, bro.
Go get your gold medal, man. Represent Charlotte that way, man. I want to ask you a quick question, man. And you know we're gonna come back to this at a later date, but this is just something on my mind today, man. And again, we're gonna have plenty of time to discuss this in future shows. So Michael Jordan and Brass were in Atlanta this weekend, checking out Anthony Edwards. Does that signify to you that is the pick?
Yeah. Knowing what we know about Jordan and the Hornets, okay. So here's why I think that's the pick. What does Anthony Edwards do?
Score.
He scores.
Yes.
Michael Jordan loves scores. Michael Jordan is the greatest scorer of all time in any metric. He probably looks at Anthony Edwards and say, yep, that's our guy, because he's going to be able to score in the NBA, which he will. He will be able to come into the NBA and score. That would not be my pick. I'm still on the LaMelo Ball train. I feel like if you're going to upset the guard small forward rotation, LaMelo is better for that because his game is more well-rounded, I guess.
2 points I want to make to that. So according to Hornets insider Rick Bonnell, Mitch Kupchak is not too concerned with roster structure right now. So if we end up with 4 centers, 5 shooting guards, 13 power forwards, it does not matter to Mitch Kupchak right now. He's going to pick the best available player, best player available. Now, here's why I think Anthony Edwards is the pick. I've said this, and I'll keep on saying it. I think the Minnesota Timberwolves would be absolutely crazy to not pick LaMelo Ball. I think it would just be insane for them to not pick that, to not make that pick. The Golden State Warriors, I think we may even see them shop that pick, because do they even need a draft pick at their stage?
I mean, they have a legitimate shot at Giannis.
Right. So what do they care about some rookie, some guy, who cares? You know what I mean? So with that being said, man, they're rumored to select James Wiseman and shop him or keep him. So with that being said, that leaves us Anthony Edwards anyway. So, but again, man, we'll see.
I think they're Jordan, Mitch, JB. They're looking at the likelihoods.
Right.
And right now, all the mock drafts have Wiseman and LaMelo gone.
1 and 2. Yeah.
1 and 2. Yeah. So that leaves us either Edwards or the kid from Europe, which I don't see the Hornets making a serious push for that. When you've got a talent like Anthony Edwards, a guy who you can score, and if the one thing the Hornets need, then they need a lot of things, but consistent scoring is one of those things. We really can't rely on Devontae Graham having to shoot the lights out every single night. Need to score. As far as roster structure, my only concern is, what do you do about the guard situation? Edwards,
you beat me to it, but go ahead. Yeah.
Edwards would probably be better suited to play a 2 guard in the NBA. So where does that leave Terry Rozier and Devontae Graham? One of those guys,
or Malik Monk. Where does that leave him as well?
Yeah, I know. Right. I ain't concerned about it. Malik Monk still has to play his way back into the good graces of the fans and the team after everything that he's done to lose that position. He was given opportunities. So, but it does beg another question. Now you have a bunch of guards who can score. Who gets the minutes? Somebody's going to have to be regulated to the bench that was previously a starter, either Devontae Graham or Terry Rozier. And I think if you're either one of those players, it would feel like a burn for a rookie to come in and usurp you. Because,
yeah, right.
And I feel
but I think we both agree on this. There's nobody on this roster that commands that their place on this team is entrenched. Not a single player.
Nobody. I feel like Anthony Edwards comes in and it's like, oh man, this kid is the real deal. Then hey, somebody's got to be a pro. Sometimes being a pro is doing things,
accepting your role.
Exactly. So plus, and I feel like Rozier still has. I feel like he has a lot to prove, and he can be shocked. I'd rather shock him than Devontae Graham, just because of the age difference, and I feel like Graham, has potential that we haven't seen yet. So I think a lot of fans like the Wiseman pick because he's pretty plug and play.
Yeah, no doubt.
The Hornets have a need for a big man. You got the best big man in the draft. You stick him right in, and that's a pretty good starting lineup.
And that is a segue from my next question because we run out of time. We're about to wrap it up. So, Hernangomez, Bismack Biyombo, they are both free agents this season. Theoretically, you need 3 centers on the roster. Which one is going? If you're Kaiser Kupchak, which one of those guys are you trying to keep?
Willie. We've seen flashes from Hernangomez. He did make the all-rookie team, all-rookie second team. There's something there with him. It's just that he has a few deficiencies, like his feet are made of concrete or whatever, that kind of keep him from moving to that next level. But I feel like you can train those things out. We've seen Biyombo's peak.
Yeah. He's not getting any better or worse at this point.
Exactly. He makes a ton of cash, mainly because he lost.
Toronto overpaid him.
Yeah, it's like
that's why he makes a ton of cash.
Games got you $20 million a year. So I think you've got to find a way to. Well, I mean, they'll probably just let Biyombo's contract fall off at the end of the season. But if you can keep Willie, I think he's a good backup center. And if you needed him to start, he could possibly fill that role. Zeller is not getting any older, and he's got an injury history. I think you find a way to keep Hernangomez on the roster while picking up a serviceable starting big man maybe in free agency.
All right. Well, look, man, we actually made something out of the show without one of our guys here today, man. So we have reached
the Jets living it up, man.
Yeah, man.
Looking at his Facebook and Instagram, like, yo, hold up,
bro. we hope Rodney's somewhere watching, sipping on mojitos on the beach somewhere, which he probably is. But anyway, man, Kaiser, shout ats. What you got?
I'm gonna give a shout out to the greatest Formula One driver in history, Lewis Hamilton. Today,
he did it again today.
92 wins. That's an incredible feat, and people hate him for a lot of different reasons, but you can never take that away from him. 92 wins, a record that probably won't be broken ever.
Yeah,
that's just dominance. So to see, especially in Formula One, and a sport that I'll just say it, there ain't no black people in F1. There just aren't. So to have one of the greatest drivers in history, maybe the greatest driver in history, because he's going to win his 7th world championship unless he just falls off the planet. To be a person of color is a wonderful, wonderful thing. So shout out to him and Mercedes-AMG.
No doubt.
Dominance.
All right. I would like to give myself credit for running a live stream on our Facebook page today, but actually I just messed up something. So with that being said, I want to shout out everybody who was in the comment section today. including my Aunt Linda. I'm not sure if you're still here or not, but if you are, hey, Auntie. Also, man, shout out to Rodney and his lovely wife for their 10. I don't know what year it is. I'm sorry, but shout out to y'all for your anniversary. Shout out to Vince for joining us today in the chat room, man. Shout out to everyone who keeps supporting us. Shout out to Duck and SWAT on their 10-year anniversary. Shout out to a great World Series game last night, man. I am so glad I stayed up to watch that. That was incredible. I'll try to stay up to watch this one tonight, man. But again, shout out to everybody who keeps supporting Under Construction, man. We will see y'all again next week. Hopefully, me and Kaiser are both right, and we can sweep these dirty Atlanta Falcons. I am sick and tired of losing to the New Orleans Saints, and hopefully I am happy next week, man.
If we lose, Danny be like, hey, man, can I come on the show?
Right. Danny Thompson's going to magically appear on the show if they win next week. Anyway, thank y'all for watching, man. We'll see y'all next week, man. Peace out, y'all.
Peace.